think like you were saying there's an honesty in sharing about what, but there also needs to be an honesty in self-reflection here, because we can't expect relationships to grow if we're ignorant, or like whether willfully or not, of our own weaknesses, because we're just going to be trapped by them. And that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect to have good friendships, but it just means that like you can't, like, ignorance isn't bliss here, especially if you want to enter into a relationship that's nourishing and fulfilling and pursuing like common goals and interests and sharing of life. Like, it can't be with, I guess this is kind of like the summary of it, like it has to be done in reality. And I think we live in a world, like, that's such a dumb whatever, but it's true, like, especially now with like social media and all, like, relationships are so fake that to get over like the Instagram post is like, that's not a friendship. That's not people who look at your stuff online. That's not a relationship. It's just not. And if that's the way in which we interact, and you want to bring that to like a face-to-face, really, like, it's not going to work, so there has to be a sort of like assessment of self, and not in an existential crisis kind of way, but like, yeah, like I react poorly when X happens. It's like, okay, well, know that about yourself. So that way, a relationship, either the other person doesn't become like a punching bag, or you don't become like a punching bag kind of thing, because that's not what it's about. So.
Yeah. No, I think that like when you think about it in those terms, so friendship requires you to be honest before reality. I think of the way that Monsignor Luigi Giussani describes reason or rationality. He says it's a attentiveness to reality and the totality of its factors, which I think is the necessary condition to conversion. Like, in order to convert, I mean, in the sense of ongoing conversion, to like continue to unpack the grace and virtues which God bestows at baptism and restores through the sacrament of confession, you need to be able to like know yourself to some degree or extent, to accept yourself to some degree or extent, to get over yourself to some degree or extent, so that you can actually enter into a relationship with another person, and know the kind of obstacles or hindrances that you're going to pose to intimacy, to sharing, as we have described, and that there might be similar obstacles or hindrances which come from the other side, but to be able to take them in stride, to know what's possible, and then to go on the basis of that assessment towards something better, to something fuller, something richer indeed. But the presumption there is that you're willing to do the work. So I think, for instance, like sometimes we'll use our friends because we find it difficult to live our lives. So it's like you're sad and you text your friend like, hey, you around? And your friend says yes, and then you find yourself 25 minutes later in the same room, but then you're seated on opposite sides of the table just texting. Like, you're using each other as therapy puppies. Like, you're not actually with each other. So there's no real commitment, there's no real engagement, there's no real sharing. And mind you, every time you're with your friend, you don't have to be like, let's stare into the pools of each other's eyes and think deep thoughts. It's like, settle down there, sweetheart. Yeah. But you don't want to use your friend just because you're not willing to bear the pain of your life. You shouldn't expect your friend to just take the edge off the pain of your life. You should expect your friend to bear that pain with you, but it presumes that you're willing to bear it yourself.
Yeah.
Which is tough. So, yeah, the type of sharing that friendship entails it's pretty raw, it's pretty honest, it's pretty real if you're invested in that kind of ongoing conversion, if you're invested in that further up and further in. Because that intimacy with your friend, that sharing, is going to mediate intimacy with the Lord, mediate sharing with Him, because the friend's going to bring you before the Lord and say, like, we see in the same thing, we see in the same truth, we're embracing the same good, which is a great gift when done well, but it can be an occasion of even deeper sadness or frustration if not. Father Jacob Bertrand.
Father Gregory.
A Dominican, a Franciscan, and a Jesuit walk into a bar. One of them asks the audience to subscribe. That's not a joke. Any ways you can improve upon it?
Just don't tell jokes.
Right. This is not a joke. Please subscribe. Cheers.